Everybody's always trying to kick your ass. And you have to figure out how to kick your own ass first.
I was fanatical in my 20s. Helping Microsoft lead the way in software was the only thing that I really focused on.
The way I tend to view problems is from a physics standpoint.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business.
Living that believe in life. Out here living that believe in life. Every day we living that believe in life. Hustle like we living that believe in life. Living life, yeah, so we grinding it out. Every single day we be grinding it out. Hustle like we living that believe in life, oh. That believe in life, oh.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel is created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You've got Michael Jordan level talent at something. So today, let's live your best believed life and learn how to think and act like a billionaire. Okay, let's kick it off with rule #1. Be brutally honest with yourself with Mark Cuban.
Even after you had done your thing, there was still an ache to make sure that Yahoo itself was on track. Do you know what that was about?
Yeah, they were screwing everything up, you know? I mean, look, they had an opportunity to dominate streaming media. They also owned, at the same time, the patent to cost per click.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Google's entire business to this day is built around pay-per-click, rather, not cost per pay-per-click. Yeah. So they had the entire patent for pay-per-click. Had they just said, sorry, Google, you can't use it, there would be no Google. Instead, they said, yeah, $133 million and give us some stock. They were just too nice, right? Which blinded them in a lot of respects. And I remember walking in with a $32 million sale, saying, okay, we're going to do streaming, we're going to sell all this company's content, you know, it's worth $32 million for us, and it's going to preempt these other potential competitors. And I forget if it was Jerry or Tim or whoever said, no, we don't work that way. We don't preempt competition. We just leave it open. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go buy a basketball team. They just didn't see these things. And I mean, it's a lesson in your businesses. There's going to be, everybody's always trying to kick your ass. And you have to figure out how to kick your own ass first. Seriously, because if you're not brutally honest with yourself in your own business about what your frailties are, someone else is going to find them. Yahoo didn't get that. Yahoo just thought, you know what, we're just going to continue moving forward and then we'll just compete with everybody else and, you know, we have no other problems. Didn't quite work out for them, did it?
No.
Rule #2, use physics principles in your thinking with Elon Musk.
The way I tend to view problems is from a physics standpoint. I think physics is a good analytical framework, and one of the key things in physics is to reason from first principles. This is contrary to the way most human reasoning takes place, which is by analogy. Reasoning from first principles just means that you figure out what are the fundamental truths or things that people are pretty sure are fundamental truths. And can you build up to a conclusion from that, or, you know, from those principles, and then certainly if you come up with some idea and it appears to violate one of those fundamental truths, then you're probably wrong, or you should get a really big prize or something like that. This may seem like, I don't know, it may seem sort of obvious when it's explained, but it's actually not what people do. Reasoning by analogies is helpful because it's a shortcut.
Yeah.
And it's mostly correct, but it tends to be most incorrect when you're dealing with new things because it's hard to analogize to something really new.
Rule #3, be obsessed with Bill Gates.
Your early days, you described yourself as a nightmare boss. Those are your words, not mine. Was your work ethic just very different to everybody else's?
I was fanatical in my 20s. Helping Microsoft lead the way in software was the only thing that I really focused on. So, you know, I worked weekends, I didn't believe in vacation, and so I really pushed people to work hard. Did you? And I was still learning how to manage people, particularly the different skill sets, the sales people, the accounting people. And so, you know, I fortunately, I think I'm a little bit better now.
Also, if you want to have more self-love and confidence, check out my 254 series. They're free. The links to join are in the description below.
If everything has to work in 2 to 3 years, then that limits what you can do.
I've always been passionate. Some people thought, it's more OCD than anything else.
When I was selling copiers door to door, I had a very clear vision of what my life was going to be like.
Rule number 4, persevere with Jeff Bezos.
Your stock at one point, I think, went to $100, but then it went down to $6 or something like that.
At the peak of the internet bubble, our stock peaked somewhere around $113. Okay. And then after the internet bubble, busted open, our stock went down to $6. It went from 113 to 6 in less than a year. So my annual shareholder that year starts with a one-word sentence, and that one-word sentence is the word ouch.
So most of those internet companies of the dot-com era are out of business.
Yeah.
You survived. What was it that made you to survive, and virtually the rest of them are gone?
That whole period is very interesting because the stock is not the company, and the company is not the stock. And so as I watched the stock fall from 113 to 6, I was also watching all of our internal business metrics, number of customers, profit per unit, everything you can imagine, defects, etc. Every single thing about the business was getting better and fast. And so as the stock price was going the wrong way, everything inside the company was going the right way. And we didn't need to go back to the capital markets. We didn't need more money. The only reason, a financial bust like the internet bubble bursting is, makes it really hard to raise money. But, we already had the money we needed. So we just needed to continue to progress.
Rule number 5, use humor to your advantage with Sarah Blakely.
I know that as part of the Spanx Training Bootcamp, one of the mandatory learning modules is comedy that every employee has to go through. So why is that important?
I didn't understand why everybody was so serious. So I thought, you know what? I don't subscribe to the fact that you have to act serious to be taken seriously. And I like to laugh at myself. When I worked in corporate America for a long time, and everybody was super uptight and super serious, and there was no humor and there was no levity, and then everybody at like 5 o'clock became ragingly hilarious. I was like, what's going on? And so the alcohol probably helped at 5, but anyway, I wanted to use humor, and I love to do that in the workplace. And yes, we have a boot camp at Spanx, a training boot camp when you come on board. And one of the modules is doing stand-up comedy. And I've used the comedic stuff that I did in my marketing. I wrote, "Don't worry, we've got your butt covered" right on my package when I first started in 2000, which was not very common to do, especially taking it to the Neiman Marcus to sell it. I named my company Spanx, which was, made people laugh. And believe it or not, it was very shocking at the time that I named the company Spanx. I actually had people hang up on me often. I would call them and say, "Hi, I'm Sarah from Spanx," and then they'd hang up. And I'd call back and I'd go, "I'm serious, I'm a real company and my company's called Spanx." And they go, "Oh, I thought you were prank calling me." And then, naming my products, I broke into the world's most boring category. Can we talk about shapewear? Who wants to talk about shapewear and undergarments? But I named it Power Panties. I started naming all my products, and it made people laugh, and it gave so much energy. And then all of a sudden you had Gwyneth Paltrow and Julia Roberts flashing their Spanx on red carpets and saying, "I'm wearing Spanx," like all these celebrities. And I think it's because I chose to do humor and people wanted to participate in that. There was energy around that. So I use it in every aspect of the marketing. I use humor to turn around a situation when I'm bombing it. It might give me a second chance. When I cold called to sell fax machines door to door for 7 years, I learned very quickly that if I could make somebody laugh or smile, I'd get another 30 seconds before they'd slam the door in my face. It helps you move through pain. It's a wonderful tool.
And rule number 6, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is make mistakes with Mark Zuckerberg.
So many things go wrong when you're starting a company, and often I think people ask, what mistakes should you avoid making? And my answer to that question is don't even bother trying to avoid mistakes because you're going to make tons of mistakes, right? And the important thing is actually learning quickly from whatever mistakes you make and not giving up. Right, and I mean, there are things every single year of Facebook's existence that could have killed us or made it so that it just seemed like moving forward and making a lot of progress just seemed intractable, but you just kind of bounce back and you learn, and nothing is impossible. You just have to kind of keep running through the walls.
Now I have a special bonus clip from Robert Smith on how to take risks that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's go from just watching a video to taking action. Here we go. Question number 1, where do you need to be more brutally honest with yourself? Number 2, how can you use humor to your advantage? And number 3, where do you need to just persevere? And if you made it this far in a video, I wanna celebrate you. Give me a hashtag believe down in the comments as well.
You're doing very well out there. You're now living in San Francisco area. You're making a big success. You're by investment banking standards. I presume you're, highly compensated, so forth. What propelled you to say, I'm going to give all this up and go start my own company?
Right. So the interesting thing that occurred, as again, as an engineer, I realized way back in my Goodyear and Tire and Rubber days, the impact that software really had on businesses. The thing that I noticed that there's very few software companies were actually efficiently run. Well, why? The big part was most executives who started software companies, well, they wrote code or they knew a market opportunity and they sold the code. There was never anyone who taught them how to run software companies. So I then run into this small company, I'll say small, in Houston, Texas, that is the most efficient software company I've ever seen. They had some very basic things that they just did extremely well. And I said, wow, if you took those basic things and actually applied them ultimately to other enterprise software companies, you could run those businesses very similar to the way they ran theirs and would create tremendous value in those companies. That was the idea. That was the conceit.
And they said, that's a good idea. Why don't you do it?
Well, yeah, in essence. I said, well, if you actually thought about taking some of these best practices and putting them, buying enterprise software companies and driving them forward, you could actually do pretty well. And I said, that's a great idea. Would you do that? And I said, well, and they gave me one of those offers that looked quite interesting. And I remember my lawyer said, this is a bad deal, Robert, but you should take it.
Right. So you went to Goldman and said, I'm leaving. And
right.
Did they try to talk you out of it? I presume they did.
Of course. They made the pitch against it. But, like all things, David, at some point in time in your life, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, you have to take a little risk and go see if this is something
How
that's
old
going
were
to
you
work.
when you took this?
I was 39 years old. And
Okay.
it's so interesting. So, of course, I started doing research. It was the same age that others left what they were doing to go start their businesses. So I said, well, let's go give it a run.
If you want to know 5 pieces of life-changing advice from monks and gurus, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.